Hey, it's the Rooster, Bobby Lee, SouthwestSportsNest.com. Let's talk about the Oswego East Wolves. Yeah, the Wolves are at the SBC conference, and they haven't done very well over the last 4 or 5 seasons, but they have a new football coach and a new hope on the 2012 season. Tyson LeBlanc, coming over from Curry High School, has taken Curry High School 5 straight seasons into the playoffs. That's right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight times into the playoffs. He also won a public league championship. So, he's coming with a pedigree, coming with a different attitude to the Wolves this year. And, the Wolves have got some weapons. I mean, offensively, last year we got to see Oswego and Oswego East get it on at Oswego, and that crosstown rivalry is one of the best. I mean, 5,000 fans in their stadium, and I mean, it's one of the best games all season long. But there was a kid last year that really stood out to me, and that was their running back, Chris Cooper, who last year as a junior, I think he scored 3 touchdowns in that game. He was sick. I mean, the kid is crazy good, just crazy good. And, he's back this year, and when you got a back like that can run in a running football conference, that's going to be a big help to you. But here's another big help for them, and that's going to be senior Sean Kennedy at quarterback. I mean, Kennedy, again, they're going to be able to give that 1-2 punch, have a balanced offense, and I think Coach LeBlanc is looking at this new group of guys that he has and says, hey, I've got something to work with here. We've got a lot of talent on this team. Oswego's a football town. Plain and simple. Oswego is a football town. They love their football. Those kids that are coming into those programs. Oswego East has always been the sister school, so to speak, of Oswego, and I think they're getting tired of being called the sister school of Oswego. I think it's time that they step in and lay the smackdown, on some teams in the SBC. Don't be surprised if you see this team in the playoffs this year. I mean, seriously, don't be surprised, because it's very likely that they're going to make the playoffs, and I'll tell you why. I mean, their schedule, their non-conference schedule is good. It's okay. I mean, they're playing 2, 4, and 5 teams. They got Rich South on the road in Week 1 next Friday night, 7:30. And then they bring Oak Lawn back home. Both teams finished last year 4 and 5. Both teams in kind of a, so-so conference. I mean, these teams are average teams. These are not state champion, playoff, perennial playoff teams that they're playing in non-conference, but they're good, solid opponents, middle of the road, and that's kind of that. That's something that, one, you can walk away with 2 wins. So I think Oswego East is going to get those 2 wins and enter the SBC 2-0, which is critical, because as we've said over and over, the SBC there's a lot of parity, and so you're going to need every win you can get to make it in the playoffs. I don't think you're going to see a team that's going to go 9-0 out of the SBC this year. And so, that being the case, those 2 wins will be critical. Now, can Oswego East avoid the injury bug? I mean, ultimately, that's what they're going to have to do. Is they have some depth. They do have some depth. They've got some really good sophomore players that stepped up and are coming in as juniors. They got a lot of great junior players last year. They got a lot of playing time, so they've got an experienced crew. Defensively, that's going to be the big if, the big what if. I mean, if they can slow down these high-powered offenses that they're going to face in the SBC this year. I mean, Plainfield North, they're going to be a high-powered offense. Manuka, high-powered offense. Romeoville, high-powered offense. Plainfield East, well, maybe not such a high-powered offense, but a good football team. I mean, they're going to have their hands full. So, we got to sit down with Chris Cooper. I also talked to the quarterback, Sean Kennedy, and there was an aura of just confidence. I mean, these kids, they're not going to back down at all. I mean, last year, I'll say this about Oswego East, they collapsed on themselves after that Oswego loss. I mean, they had Oswego on the ropes, and for all practical purposes, it looked like they were going to come away with a win. And in that second half, it was like 2 different teams, Jekyll and Hyde. They came out and laid it on Oswego. I think they were up 21-7 at halftime, and it could have been more. And then they came out in the second half and found themselves in a battle, and it came down to to the last series in the fourth quarter against Oswego. But they had up Ryan West at the time. Ryan West was able to move the ball down the field pretty easily. And I'll say easily. Loosely. Let me say that loosely, because it was Ryan West. Okay, so it wasn't so much that the Oswego defense or Oswego East defense was terrible. It was just they were going against Ryan West, and that kid was a stud. This year, it's going to be interesting to see how this coach is accepted by the kids at Oswego East. If they buy into his program and this may be a different thing than the public league that he was in. Yeah, he made 5 years in the playoffs, but this is the SBC, and this is a completely different mindset here. This is a football community. And so whether or not he's going to be successful in getting through to his kids this year remains to be seen. But again, being real overly critical about a coach coming into a program that finished 2-7 last year and has been really a perennial doormat in the SBC, I think you got to give him some time. And but I do think that this team this year can make the playoffs. I do think it. I'm going to say though that this is a 5-5 or a 5-4 team this year. And I think that they'll get to 5 wins, largely because they're going to get those 2 non-conference games out of the way. And I think that they'll end up 2-0 heading into the SBC. So I think 5 wins is very doable for this team. But again, there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of what-ifs. And for me to sit here in preseason and tell you that they're going to be this or they're going to be that, I don't think I can define them. Let's let them define them. Here's Chris Cooper, Sean Kennedy, and the coach, Tyson LeBlanc. Let's let them define how they're going to be this season. Hope you enjoy the video. I'm with senior Chris Cooper, running back, and pretty successful season for you last year. And, the game I got to see you, and you were awesome. I mean, Oswego East game was awesome. It really had hurt a little bit, stung a little bit that you guys lost that game because, you had them beat on terrible, you had to beat on the road.
In the first half, we were up 21-7. That was terrible. That hurt. We were all crying after that game. It was a bad one. We felt bad for our seniors. And hopefully this year we're coming back harder, though. This offense is smarter, and it should work better for us.
Talk a little bit about what did you do in the offseason. Obviously, you got a little bit stronger. You've hit in the weight room a little bit.
Definitely.
But new coach, does that factor into any of this? I mean, is there any significant changes to the offense that you're still having to pick up?
Actually, no. It's pretty easy for me, to pick up. It's spread, no huddle, stuff like that. I don't want to give too much away, but
sure.
I definitely I'll let everyone know that it's going to be a shocker. We're going to be coming back hard. We're gonna hit some people where it hurts.
How about your offensive line? Confident in the kids that are coming up?
Yes,
you guys lost a couple of good a tackle and a guard that were just phenomenal for you guys last year.
Everybody so far, they're all working pretty hard. Juniors are in the weight room getting stronger. Size would be a little bit different, but if we stay aggressive with this, do the blocking schemes right, it should work.
What are you taking away from the 7-on-7s? Are you working on your maybe your hands a little bit, catching on the backfield, getting into the flat?
Because last year we didn't do that as much. This year there's a lot of more opportunities for me to do stuff like that, and I've been taking full advantage of it.
Talk a little bit about too your field vision. You're able to break a lot of arm tackles, and there are a couple of times where even I thought you were hemmed in and you'd squirt out for an 8, 10, 15-yard gain, or you'd be gone. And this year you're going to have a lot of that. There's two new coaching staffs, including not including yours, in the SBC. Oswego's got a new coach, and Manuka's got a new coach. There's a lot of change. You got to play Plainfield North last year, and a lot of the same guys are coming back because they were a lot of juniors. So you're probably familiar with Plainfield North a little bit. But talk a little bit about what you're going to try to accomplish this season as a back in the SBC.
Honestly, it's my senior year. If to get a scholarship for football, that'd be great. But I'm trying to for baseball too. But to lead this team to a conference championship and make the playoffs for the first time and get a home playoff game, that'd be a dream come true. We're working towards that. Do you feel any pressure in town too?
Oswego. For those of you that are not in Oswego in another community, do you feel any pressure? During that Oswego East, Oswego week. Are you going to feel some of that pressure? Did you feel any last year? The town is really divided in that game. There were 12,000 fans there last year.
Yeah. As a junior, not as much pressure was on me. There was pressure because I knew I was getting the ball a lot last year, and I felt bad for the seniors. I wanted to win it for them. But this year, it's a little more pressure.
When you walked down the field, what it looked like to you? Because you go to a lot of high school football games, and it's rare that you see that many people in the stands unless it's a state championship game. And even then, I don't know if state championship game drew as much as your game did.
Running out on the field for that game, that's one great experience. Seeing all the fans out there, it's a really fun experience.
Anything that you obviously you probably have friends, on both teams. Yeah. What was the smack talk afterwards?
There wasn't really much after. We didn't talk so much after that. We had a decent record, I think, 2-2 after that game. So the focus was still to make the playoffs. Obviously, we didn't do that, but wasn't too much focus on that. Off season now, they're starting to talk a little more smack about this year, but like I said, we're going to hit them hard.
Did that game set you guys back a little bit too? Because last year going into that game, you had a really good record, and best record you guys had posted in years, and and then after that game, really kind of slipped off. It almost seemed like things snowballed. Do you feel like the team lost some confidence after that game,
Definitely.
of being up 21-7, and then seeing it go away?
It definitely hit us hard where it hurt. Yeah, that one. And then after that, the next week we played Plainfield Central, and that's really when it started to go down after that.
And Plainfield Central's another team that probably you guys could have beat.
We definitely could have. It was a close game, the whole game, and we just made some simple mistakes that cost us the game.
So this year you're back, feeling healthy. Have you picked up any speed?
Definitely. I dropped to a 4.5 now. So.
4.5. Holy cow!
Add to me, yeah.
Yeah, I can't catch you.
I'm a lot stronger too.
I'm too fat, too old to catch you, man. So
hopefully I make some more people miss this year.
Hey, it's Rooster. Bobby Leach, SouthwestSportsDesk.com, and talking to Brian here. And Brian, talk a little bit about Oswego East new football coach. Let's just get right down to the chase. You're the quarterback this year, and you got a lot riding on you. But how's this new coach?
Really exciting. Everything's going to be a lot different from what we've seen before. So kids are getting excited. New offense, new defense. So he's kind of bringing in everything's new. That's kind of just the new thing, change.
Last season I was out at the field and I got to see the Oswego East game, and you guys heading into that game had a pretty good record, and played really solid. Jump out to a 21-7 lead, and you really did take it to them. I mean, it wasn't like you just beat them, but you out-muscled them and out-hustled them. And then something happened in that third quarter when you guys came out. They got the ball first. Ryan West, scored, and you guys didn't answer right away, and it almost got away from you, and then you battled back in the fourth quarter and almost came back and won the game. But how frustrating was that, knowing that, Oswego's such a football crazy town?
It was pretty big, especially because, this is our 7th, 8th year having a varsity team, being somewhat of a new school now, I guess. We're kind of getting out of that, not beating them. It was our closest game. So, we just got to keep building off of what we're doing, and hopefully this year we'll be able to get over the hump with that.
Ryan West had his moments, a good passer, but you in your own right are a pretty good passer. Having the threat of a kid like Cooper in the backfield to run the ball, even play action, do you feel like that's really going to help you freeze linebackers, freeze corners, and get the ball downfield?
I do, and it's going to help a lot with, like I did mention, that new offense. We're going to be spreading guys out. We're going to be all over the field, so we're going to try to use our speed to our advantage.
What have you taken away so far in the early going with this new coach? What do you like about him?
I like a lot. I was able to kind of, when he was doing our interviews and stuff, and one thing that he was very enthusiastic. He told us, because as seniors, we got 1 year left, and obviously with a new coach, normally you think rebuilding, getting things started again, so like that. He told us, he's like, I want to win now, because this is your guys' senior year, so you got one last chance, and I really like that. I appreciated that from a senior standpoint, obviously having 9 games left.
Well, and winning now is important, and especially considering that a lot of the kids that are in the skilled positions for you guys are returning from last year. You had a young team last year, and that young team kind of folded after the Oswego game. You guys got Plainfield Central the next week, another tight ward game with them, and it almost seemed like it snowballed after that. Maybe that's inexperience in youth, and but certainly the talent was there to play.
I agree, and we kind of folded, but not making any excuses or putting any blame on anybody, but I think maybe the senior leadership last year was faulty a little bit, so we weren't clicking at all times, and then after those couple first conference losses, it did kind of snowball, is a good way to put it.
What do you take on your back, going into the huddle this year? You talk about that senior leadership and the lack thereof it, at points during last season. How important is that for you to step up and get the younger kids, one, to contribute, and two, to keep their heads up when the score's down? Because, again, in that big Oswego East game, which is really, to me, like a state championship game. It was huge. 12,000 fans out there. In that game, you guys didn't quit. You had a chance to come back at the end of the game and fell a little bit short.
I think the biggest thing, because that was obviously Oswego East, I think the biggest thing is getting that feel and enthusiasm in every single game. And obviously with the young guys, everyone's learning something new. Even I'm, like, the new offense and everything. So the biggest thing is understanding it, picking it up, and being like a coach on the field to help everybody out.
What do you, first game of the season's, right around the corner. It really isn't, that far off. You're about 7-8 weeks away from the start of football season. What do you think you need to improve on between now and then in terms of grasping the offense and delivering the ball?
Personally, Obviously making the reads and stuff like that, everyone can improve on that, getting the timing down a little bit better. But I think the biggest thing is the tempo and taking advantage of that, because teams I don't think will be expecting it very much, especially seeing us last year. We ran a lot of power. So I think one thing we have to take advantage of is speed and getting out there and going fast.
Talk a little bit, too, about playing teams like you're at the Bolingbrook 7-on-7 here. And, I mean, Bolingbrook never won a state title. They won one last year and had a great run. And they're big, fast, quick. I mean, do you like playing against that caliber of team just to kind of see what I'm up against? I mean, who's the best corner out there? What's the best system that I got to beat? Yeah. Does that really help your game out?
I do, and I think in the past we hadn't done many competitions, stuff like this, but coach has signed us up for plenty of 7-on-7s. Obviously, we're going to team camp, stuff like that later. We're going to get away a little bit, but it will help being in this league, and then I know they have a larger showcase. We're hosting a couple, so we're going to be out. We need just a lot of reps, and that'll be good for us.
Oswego's on your home field this year.
Yes, they are.
So, can I get a prediction from you?
I'm not going to make any predictions because that normally never works out well for people, but I'm just hoping for a well-played game by everybody, and I'd love to get a victory. That is the one thing I want so bad coming into my senior year.
Hey, it's the Rooster, Bobby Leach, SouthwestSportsNest.com. I'm with the new Oswego Wolves coach, Coach LeBlanc. And, Coach, welcome to Oswego East and welcome to the SBC. I mean, you came from Curry, but, how exciting was that to get out here out west a little bit?
Having gone to school at Aurora University, it's kind of like coming home in a sense. I enjoyed my time in the city, but let's face it, the city's a basketball part of the state, and if you want to be successful in football, you have to make the trek to the suburbs. So I'm extremely excited, especially with the Oswego community, knowing what I know about the community and how football-driven they are. It's a great opportunity and a great situation.
I talked to a couple of your players earlier, and kids that were in that game last year. The biggest game of the season for you guys, aside from the first game of the year, will be that rivalry game, Oswego East. They'll be on your field this year, and last year jumped out 21-7, and they actually had a shot in the fourth quarter to come back and win that game and fell a little bit short. But after that, the wheels kind of came off the wagon. And your quarterback, Kennedy, said he felt like the senior leadership at that point kind of folded. It wasn't really there, pushing up the juniors, and he really felt like they just weren't clicking. Is that something that you've talked about with the kids coming in and saying, hey, listen, we have the talent here because we proved it last year. They ran with Plainfield Central. They ran with Plainfield North. They held out with Manuka for a while, and then Oswego.
And obviously not being a part of that game, I wasn't there to experience exactly what happened, but one of the things that we've really tried to preach to them is one play at a time. You can't, if you make a great play, awesome, that was a great play, move on to the next. If you make a bad play, hey, flush it, move on to the next. You can't let things snowball like that. And, from what I've gathered so far from the kids we have, the senior leadership is there now. We haven't been in the heat of the fire in a big rivalry game like that. And truth be told, I'm mixed about how I'm going to play that week. And in terms of, do I approach the kids, is this just another game on our schedule, or is this the biggest game of your life? And I don't want to put too much pressure on it. And we have 4 games before we have that game, so obviously the goal is to be going into that game 4-0, which would be a great achievement for us. But it's going to be awesome to be part of the rivalry, and hopefully we can make it more of a back and forth rivalry, because it's been kind of one-sided. It's been one-sided in the time that we've been a school, but up to this point, what we have from our seniors has been great. Great leadership, great, they push the young guys, and I think the way that we've set up our summer camp has helped that out a little bit. So, it's for right now, that game is and it's hard to, I know everybody else is thinking about it, but for me, I'm trying to put that on the back burner and let's get to week 1 before we get to week 5.
Hey, your players talked about, one of the things they liked about you coming in was that they had said, hey, one thing we appreciate or respect about the new coach and our new coaches is that this isn't a rebuilding process. This is we want to win now. These are seniors, and they appreciated that fact that you weren't coming in and trying to rebuild what they felt they've already got. They want to win, and they want to win now. They don't want to spend 3 years rebuilding.
As a coach, how do you look a senior in the face and tell him I have a 4-year plan? Because that 4-year plan doesn't include him.
Right.
And I want them to understand that we have the ability, we have the talent to do that, and it's just a matter of putting pieces of the puzzle together and gelling, both as a coaching staff, because we've made some movements on the coaching staff, and as a group. And honestly, I wouldn't be at Oswego East if I didn't think if I thought it was a building process. I think it's something that you can come in and if you do things right, you can win right now.
You know, and speak a little bit about, you know, let's talk about your running back Cooper, who was on the sports desk quite a bit last year. I mean, we talked about him an awful lot. Great little running back, but picked up some speed in the offseason. I mean, he went from a 4.7 40 to a 4.5 40. You know, so I mean, that extra 2/10 is. I mean, he was quick enough last year as it is, and he's like a little Barry Sanders. I mean, he's really tough to bring down, low center of gravity. But how great is that if you're going to run a spread offense or spread out a little bit? How great is that to have a back capable of breaking the first tackle?
You almost, you know, it's great because now he goes from being a 7-yard and carry a couple people back to a home run hitter. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, that makes a big difference because in our offense, we hope that we create those vertical seams and that if he hits them, you know, he's to the house. But I tell you what, the kid's a weight room warrior. And it's the way he works in the weight room and the things he's done in the off season, it's the fact that he's dropped 0.2 of a second, it's very easy to understand why. I mean, he's one of those kids that when you see him with his shirt off, you're like, okay, that kid knows where the weight room's at. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's a quality baseball player on top of it. He's already got one offer for baseball. So, you know, we're trying to split time with him here in football and baseball during the summer. But, again, we're expecting – I told him last year he was a 1,000-yard back with 1,000 carries. This year he's going to be a 1,000-yard back with 200 carries. We're going to try and cut his carries down and spread the ball out. But, again, anytime you have a guy like that in your offense, you got to make sure you give him the ball.
Let's talk a little bit about your quarterback. I mean, quarterback coming back very experienced and took some shots last year. I mean, his offensive line didn't always protect him. He was on the run a little bit. So I guess he's used to being able to roll out in the pocket and run occasionally. But, you know, a real intelligent quarterback. You had said earlier before off camera, you know, how intelligent, how impressed you were with his intelligence, and how important is that, especially A, putting in a new system, B, complicated, you know, when you run a spread, I'm assuming you're going to have audibles, that you'll be calling multiple audibles, multiple reads. How important is that to be just a smart kid?
You know what? In our system, it makes you go from, you know, being an average offense to the ability to be a great offense, because with us being a no huddle, we're going to get to the point, and we're almost there, that I'm going to give him the freedom to call plays. And he's smart enough. I mean, he's a 30 ACT. Mm-hmm. He's smart enough to understand down and distance and situation, area of the field. So I have the utmost confidence that we'll be able to do big things with him. I mean, in terms of, I've coached, as I told you before, I've coached Division III football at a school where the average ACT is 26, and he's the most intelligent quarterback I've ever coached. I've been fortunate to have some pretty good quarterbacks that I've coached, but again, we're expecting big things from him. He split time last year. They ran a little bit of spread when he was in there, so he has a little bit of experience doing that. But more than anything, he's just a very headsy kid, and he's a leader. He's the type of kid that when he says something, the kids respond. They do what he tells them to do, and he's not arrogant about it. He's just very confident in what it is he's doing. And that, you know, I mean, you look at the Broncos and Tim Tebow. He's probably not the greatest quarterback in the world, but because he has that confidence and he's a great leader, the guys followed him and they had some successful things. So hopefully that, you know, Sean will be able to do the same thing for us.
Talk a little bit about your special teams and your defense. Last year, defense for Oswego East was pretty decent against the run. Struggled a little bit against the pass and pass coverage, but was pretty decent against the run. And this is predominantly a running conference, a running football conference. However, it's changing a little bit. I mean, there are teams that have been able to open it up. Ryan West, obviously, now I think everybody's thankful he's gone. Opposing coaches, that is, are thankful he's gone because he really toasted a lot of people. But again, talk a little bit about your defense. What are you trying to accomplish with them? To help with that pass coverage.
You know, one of the big things that we're doing this summer is we're hitting a lot of 7-on-7s. And
that's new for Oswego East.
Yes, it's been a focus for us in practice, and then getting out here, getting live fire against other quality competition is the only way you can get to improvement. And one of the things that we've really tried to do defensively is we're going to be very aggressive. I know a lot of teams in the conference, just from what I've seen on film, you know, from the few films that I've had to watch, they're a little bit more of a read and react defense, and we're going to try to be the opposite from that. We're going to blitz. We're going to, you know, play with our hair on fire, so to speak. We're trying to get 11 guys to the ball in a bad mood, and you know, hopefully the thing I've tried to preach to them, and hopefully they pick this up from me, is I want them to have more fun. I want them to be excited about making great plays. You know, if the offense has a negative play, that's a win for us. And you know, so again, Coach Dan Durbin is our defensive coordinator. Has done a great job putting our defensive package together. And again, hopefully we can just grow and grow and grow as the season goes along, and we can shore up some things on the back end. You know, tonight out here at 7-on-7, we've got a couple sophomores that we're out here giving a look to just because we're trying to build depth. From a special teams perspective, we returned both the kickers from last year, Cooper Fell and Jason Evans. Cooper's more of the accurate, you know, short yardage field goal guy, and Jason's the guy with the big leg that's going to put in the end zone on kickoffs and you know, try our longer field goal attempts. But, you know, for us, a philosophy I've always had is you try to get your best players on special teams, because if last time I checked, it's a third of the game, and if you're out there putting, you know, maybe guys that aren't your guys, you're just trying to get some playing time. If you're out there trying to put them on special teams, and it's gonna end up biting you in the butt in the end, and we don't want to put ourselves in that situation. So, you know, we're just trying to build in all three facets of the game.
Last question, Coach: grass or turf? What do you prefer? I mean, you got a grass field over in Oswego.
I prefer turf. I prefer the new stuff they have nowadays. It's so, I mean, it's forgiving. There's low maintenance. You know, you look at a facility like Bolingbrook, and they're on their field every day of the season. They get to practice on their field. So, and that's a nice luxury to have. And you know, I think, you know, obviously I know it's a predominantly grass conference, but hopefully that's something that changes in my time at Oswego.
Well, it might be a tax issue, but you know, I think if you win a couple playoff games, they might.
If you look at what they're paying in some of the areas of Oswego for taxes, we probably could afford it too.
It's been a production of SouthwestSportsNest.com, home of the playmakers and game changers. Remember, do your best. Get on the nest.